A major moment in the long-running Mexican drug war as 29 cartel leaders are handed over to authorities in the US. US President Donald Trump says that he plans to impose a 25% tariff on Canada and Mexico starting on Tuesday. President Trump claimed the tariffs, which were paused on the 3rd of February for 1 month, are necessary to stop illicit drugs from pouring into the US from Mexico and Canada. President Trump also announced an additional 10% universal tariff on imports from China, which already faces a 10% tariff on its product. Thailand has deported at least 40 Uyghurs to China despite warnings from rights groups that they could face possible torture and death there. The group is thought to have been flown to China on Thursday after spending 10 years in a Bangkok detention centre. China is accused of committing crimes against humanity and possible genocide against the Uyghur people, a mostly Muslim ethnic minority in China. And the Trump administration has moved to fire transgender members of the US military. A Pentagon memo released on Wednesday says that transgender service members will be separated from the US military within the next 30 days. The memo specified that some service members will be allowed to obtain a waiver on a case-by-case basis, but only if they show that they have never attempted a gender transition. And CBS Morning's co-host Gayle King, singer Katy Perry and Jeff Bezos' partner Lauren Sanchez are headed to space with Blue Origin's historic all-women mission. The rocket company, owned by Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, says that Blue Origin's New Shepard rocket is due to take off in the spring with a crew of 11. Former NASA rocket scientist Aisha Bowe, civil rights activist Amanda Wynne and film producer Kerry-Ann Flynn will join the trio in their journey to space.
The UK government has backed plans for a second runway at London's Gatwick Airport, provided that measures to reduce noise are put into place. It would make Gatwick's northern runway, which is currently only used for taxiing or as a backup, operational by the end of the decade. And the number of people claiming asylum in the UK last year reached its highest level since records began in 1979. New data shows more than 108,000 people claimed asylum in 2024. An increase of 18% on the previous year. The UK also sent more people into immigration detention last year, with that figure increasing by 12%.
We'll take a look at the papers now. The front page is dominated, as you would expect, by the Prime Minister's visit to Washington. The Daily Mail says Sir Keir Starmer and President Trump struck up an unlikely bromance when the pair met at the White House. A love-in is how The Sun describes the meeting. The front page features a photo of the moment Mr Starmer handed the US president a letter from the King, inviting him for a state visit.
Let's have a look at The Guardian, focusing on Mr Trump's comments that the presence of US workers in Ukraine will, in effect, act as a backstop, deterring Russia from invading again. And let's have a look at the Daily Express. The other story on many of the front pages, the death of actor Gene Hackman, his wife Betsy. The Daily Express features a photo of the couple who were found dead at their home in the state of New Mexico.
Today at 1, a government resignation over cuts to foreign aid. Annalise Dodds was the International Development Minister, but accuses the Prime Minister of removing food and healthcare from desperate people and appearing to follow in the slipstream of Donald Trump. It comes as Sir Keir Starmer returns from Washington and a meeting with the US president that offered hope on a tariff-free trade deal but left questions over Ukraine. Well, in the next few hours, Ukraine's President Zelensky will be at the White House for talks with President Trump. We'll be live in Westminster and Washington with the latest. In other news, some of the UK's biggest banks are hit with IT issues, leaving thousands of customers without access to cash on payday. Around 300,000 people protest in Greece, marking 2 years since the country's worst ever rail disaster. A deal for GPs in England. The government says a 7% boost in funding will help stop the early morning scramble for appointments. Beavers are back as the government gives the go-ahead for them to be re-released in England to help with flooding and biodiversity.
You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country, that's back to you, far more than a lot of people said they should have.
An angry exchange between Donald Trump and President Zelensky, with the US leader accusing him of gambling with world peace. Their talks at the White House were supposed to plot a path to peace in the war with Russia. Instead, Mr. Trump and his deputy, J.D. Vance, accused Kyiv of not being thankful for US help.
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media.
More detail on the breaking news about the health of the Pope that we gave to you in the last few minutes. So Pope Francis experienced a breathing crisis on Friday, but is now responding well to treatment. The 88-year-old, who has spent the last 2 weeks in hospital with pneumonia, temporarily suffered breathing difficulties which caused him to vomit, but he was given air and is now recovering well. That was from a statement from the Vatican.